Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, very good morning to you. I guess we better kick off with the Trump situation, hadn't we, and the latest on the tariff wars. I didn't check what the London stock markets closed at, but I presume they were still down. But the American ones seem to have rallied quite a bit.
Yes, if you were lucky yesterday and bought Apple or Tesla shares, you'll be having a champagne with your cornflakes this morning, I think, because they're up by 15 and 23%.
Right.
Just in the space of a few hours.
I mean, call me old-fashioned. This is what stock markets do, isn't it?
Well, you buy when everyone is selling. This is the basic rule. This was Ted Hughes. Howard Hughes. What is it, Ted Hughes?
Ted Hughes wrote some good poems, though, I must admit.
Howard Hughes, great success. The US stock market up by 7% in total, but it's still not enough to actually correct.
No.
But for one day, it's not bad.
It will take a while to get back to where it was.
But more curious is why President Trump did this, and it seems as if it was the bond markets that actually finally spooked him into action here. It was the markets, remember, that caused Liz Truss to think twice, and here too. And it may be, of course, in the bond markets, for our viewers, that's where, when the stock market is collapsing, investors traditionally go into the bond markets as a safe haven.
And that's where the debt is,
and that's where the debt is held. Now, coincidentally, who are the biggest holders of debt? One is Japan with $1 trillion, and then it's China, and then there's the UK. And there's a lot of talk as to maybe Japan and China were actually dumping these bonds, which caused that. One of the issues you must take into account if you're going to have a trade war with China is the second biggest holder of your debt. Plus, of course, a lot of businesses were applying pressure on President Trump recently. Also, the Republican Party, midterm elections coming up in 2026, if they were going in in a recession, what he
wouldn't have wanted is for prices to go up in the shops, because that's what really matters. Because one of the reasons we don't talk about tariffs an awful lot on this station is just because of what you've just said. You know, you've explained it very well, but it's quite complicated.
It's very complicated.
And for most people, it's not something that they want to get their heads around first thing in the morning. What they do want to know is whether or not the price of their house is going to drop dramatically, or the sale of goods that they buy on a general basis is actually going to go anywhere. And that's kind of where we are at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, and you had, one of the key figures behind Apple had said, look, the price of an Apple phone could go up to $3,000 if it's produced in America.
Right.
The price of trainers could double, because you have to, of course, factor in the wage cost of Americans.
But, of course, meanwhile,
the
people who run Apple will still be living high on the hog, and they won't be worrying about anything anytime soon.
Well, they will with their share price going up by 15%.
Well, exactly. But you know what I mean? I mean, these companies that say, oh, we'll obviously have to double the price. And you go, well, there are ways of not screwing the public, just because, the idea that if somebody had come to you 25, 30 years ago and said you're going to be paying £2,000 for a phone, that you'd have gone, that'd be ridiculous. I can buy a computer for that, which indeed you can. So, the world is a strange and unusual place, I find.
But I think a lot of Republicans thought if there's a lot more we want to do with the country rather than just deal with tariffs, and if we go in with a recession to the midterm elections and we lose in Congress, then Trump won't have the support in Congress if there are too many Democrats there to put through all the other things, DEI, migrant stuff, all that sort of thing. It all depends upon this, so that's really important. Also, a bit of a contradiction here with tariffs. Does Trump want tariffs to actually bring back manufacturing to America? In which case, why would you lower them? Or do you want them as a negotiating tactic? That's not really been clarified too much.
I think it's a bit of both, really, and we've been talking about this now for about a week, because nobody can be very sure. But what you can be very sure about is that there are plenty of pundits all over the place who are going to give Trump a chance to succeed, or not give him a chance to do anything. And an awful lot of the coverage this morning is about whether Trump is weak and whether Trump has done the right thing and whether they've called his bluff. All of these things are true. And meanwhile, we wait and see, because it's what I keep saying to people about the whole policies that are coming out of the White House.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the people that I've spoken to, there are two types of tariffs. There are the big shock tariffs, which are a negotiating tactic, and then there's the baseline of 10%. Everyone from the UK to Iran. And I think that may be the tariff that stays, actually, in order to encourage investment back into the country.
I think so.
But the crazy ones of, 84% or whatever it is in Cambodia, those are the ones up for negotiation.
Yeah, exactly right.